Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. In today's video I am going to continue the theme of hair loss and regrowth, and we're going to have a chat about something else that's been doing the rounds, and it's the potential link between intermittent fasting and hair loss. There have been some alarming kind of articles and headlines about it, and I thought it would be worth discussing, getting down into kind of the science behind it, especially since with the new year, some people might be considering intermittent fasting or other kind of dietary or lifestyle wellness measures. Before we get started, if you're new to this channel, welcome. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. If you are an existing visitor, welcome back and thank you for all your support. So, intermittent fasting is, I'm sure most of you have heard of it, but if you haven't, it involves kind of a period of cycling between a prolonged period of fasting and then a restricted window for eating. This kind of balance between fasting and eating, the window varies, but the most common ones are 16-8, where it's 16 hours of fasting and 8 hours of feeding, but you can get longer ones, and you can get really interesting fasting windows that go to 24, 36, 48, 72 hours, and those are a little bit more extreme, but they tend to be for people who are particularly interested into tapping into things like autophagy, and we can mention that in another video. There's a bit of something for everyone, but the main benefit or idea behind intermittent fasting is that you activate your body's self-repair mechanisms, and you also kind of activate autophagy, which kind of recycles older damaged cells. And there are some proven health benefits, for example, especially with metabolic diseases, helping with things like type 2 diabetes. There's evidence that it can also help with neuronal, with brain health, joint health, all sorts of things. The evidence is ongoing with intermittent fasting, but it is something quite exciting, and it's quite interesting, and I've left a link to a full guide that I've written about it before. So where does the hair loss come in? So recent articles have been going on about how actually there's been research that showed that intermittent fasting might affect hair loss, and not in the obvious. So what's interesting about this is it's not in the obvious way that we might think. So in general, sometimes we've known that intermittent fasting or any kind of diet, if you're not going to get enough of things like zinc and iron and your vitamins, then you may end up with a nutritional deficiency, and with fast replicating cells like the hair follicles, that may result in hair loss due to that, so due to nutritional deficiency. So this study, which was published in 2024, actually suggests a different path. So it looked at animal models, and they also did a human study. A group of mice, they shaved a patch of hair, and they studied those mice against another set that had a shaved patch of hair. And they found that the mice that were intermittently fasting had slower regrowth of the hair than the mice that weren't fasting. And in fact, the mice that weren't fasting fully regrew their hair, whereas the mice that were intermittently fasting, even at the 90-day period, hadn't fully, as a group, grown all of the hair, and the rate of growth and the amount of hair that was regrown was much slower than the non-fasted mice. And when they further analysed the results in the cells from these mice studies, they found that actually the most likely culprit was oxidative stress. So they thought intermittent fasting itself leads to oxidative stress. This oxidative stress disrupts cell function, and they found that was the cause, that was causing this stress in the mice, hair follicles, the fasted mice, and then that was leading to the hair loss, so independent of the nutritional deficiency, and that's the thing. Now, as we know from the previous video we did, what translates from mice doesn't always translate to humans, and vice versa. So they did a small clinical study in a small number of patients. And that was in itself also useful. In that group of patients, they found that actually the hair regrowth was also slower in the group having intermittent fasting compared to the group that were feeding as normal. It was a small study, 49 patients, but they found they fasted one group for 18 hours a day for 10 days, and they found that there was a slower rate of hair growth between the fasted group and the non-fasted group. What's interesting though is in the human group, the differences were less marked. So the rate of hair regrowth was 20% slower compared with the non-fasted group, and a little bit echoes what the animal study showed, but not exactly. And so, like I said, the reason in both groups they think was happening is likely to be the oxidative stress caused a slowing of the hair regrowth by affecting the hair follicle cells, and maybe even causing some cell death of these hair follicle cells. So that's a very useful and interesting bit of information to have. Now, what does it really mean in the greater scheme of things? So there are caveats with the study. One, the human study was incredibly small. It's not insignificant, and this is a good this paper is an interesting paper. It's fairly thorough. It wasn't published in Cell, which is, you know, a very respectable journal, but, you know, you still have to think, what are the limitations with any scientific study? Well, the animal studies we know are limited because we're not exactly like mice, we differ a little bit. The human clinical study was in a small number of people. The other is that the reason it matters in a small number of people is that different people respond differently. So in a sample of 49, you can't really extrapolate it to everybody across the planet, across different ages, racial groups, ethnic groups, all of that, so geographic groups. So that's one thing, and you can't control for many other factors. The other thing that's also useful to know is that this study was in a relatively short period of time. So is there, if it had gone longer, what happens in people who are chronically intermittent fasting? Do you end up with a mechanism to balance that kind of oxidative stress? Are there ways that you can counteract the oxidative stress? Are there supplements you can take? Is there a fasting window that's better than another type of fasting window? So these are all really important questions. So what's the sum of it? With intermittent fasting, we do know there are health benefits, but with everything in life, not everything is for everyone. And if you are considering intermittent fasting, or if you're currently intermittently fasting, make sure that you observe what's happening to your body as a whole. What are the good things that are happening? Are you losing weight because you wanted to, but are you still active? Are your joints working well? Are you finding that it's, you know, having a positive effect on your concentration, mental health, etc.? If you have a metabolic problem or any underlying disease, you know, is this helping or making things worse? And then on the other side, are there negative side effects? Are you noticing that you're, for example, hair loss? So hair loss is an important one, or if your nails are brittle, not doing well, or your skin is suffering, for example, then if that's due to the fasting, then obviously there's an issue to be addressed, whether it's the fasting itself, whether it's nutrition, whether it's a bit of both. And if you're really not sure, if you suffer from a chronic health condition, it's worth speaking to your doctor, it's worth seeing a dietitian to help you kind of navigate this. So all in all, I think an interesting study. I think we don't throw out the baby with the bathwater, so be cautious if you're considering any form of diet, whether it's intermittent fasting or any kind of change, and it's the new year, so it's tempting to pick up new habits, but also check in with yourself regularly, and if you're finding that there is hair loss, have a think what could be the cause, and if it is the intermittent fasting, you may need to adapt that or stop it completely. And hair loss is often a sign of something underlying, whether it's stress, whether it's diet, whether there's a medical condition. I hope you found this video useful. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you are doing intermittent fasting, would love to know how your experience is. If you have suffered from hair loss with intermittent fasting for any other reason and have any questions or want to share your experiences, please do so in the comments below. I'm going to leave a link to the article that I wrote on intermittent fasting, and also to this research article as well, because I think it's quite useful. Before we go, if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Until next time, stay beautiful.